Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, or whenever it is you're joining us. We're glad you're here. And my guest for this evening, um, it was I was learned about LeeAnn through a mutual acquaintance of ours, and I didn't have any idea what the Feldenkrais method is. And so I was glad to have LeeAnn on to learn more about it myself, and that it might be valuable to you too, because I work in spirit a lot in our biofield, but you can't separate the body from the biofield and all our stuck energy that holds the emotional record of our lives. It gets stuck in the light waves of our body as well as the light waves of our biofield, and so it's so important to take care of our bodies. And I know that just thinking different thoughts helps release emotions, so why wouldn't moving in different ways release that emotional energy from our bodies as well, so we can live happier lives? And so LeeAnn Starovasnik is here tonight to talk about the Feldenkrais method, and I'm going to read her biofield. I'm going to read her bio. You can tell where I'm at all the time in the biofields, and I forgot to fill this up, so it'll just take here we go, a second. So LeeAnn has over 25 years of dedicated practice as a Guild certified practitioner of the Feldenkrais method of somatic education. And she teaches classes, workshops, and private sessions online and in her North Seattle studio. She loves applying her well-honed observation, intuition, and problem-solving skills to creatively help clients discover or recover how to move efficiently and comfortably through life with a less pain, more brain philosophy. With certifications and licensing in body, mind, and spirit studies, LeeAnn provides support and builds hope for us all, and for those especially with pain in their bodies. This year, she has launched a new series called Everyday Ease in Taking a Stand. And that sounds interesting too. Her links where you can contact her are down below, including that she's offering listeners a discount if they purchase the ABCs of Everyday Ease, A through F recordings and transcripts. And there's the code that you can use here, and you can purchase those for $25. And the link is below where you can do so. And did I leave anything out,
I don't
LeeAnn,
think so.
that we think we need to cover to start with? Okay.
No, I think you did great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I was looking forward to hearing more about your story. We're kind of built for stories,
Mhm.
and I love to hear how people get into the work that they're doing. What happened, in your life to bring you to that point and such. So, if you don't mind sharing a little of your life story with us and how you found the Feldenkrais method.
Sure, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And Carla, you're absolutely right. We're thinking, feeling, sensing, and moving simultaneously. So all these things go together, like you mentioned in your introduction, that we can't do one without the other. So yeah, if we change our movement, we might be able to change our experience of life, and that can cross all these fields that we've talking about. So that's exciting. Um, So for me, how did I find the Feldenkrais method? Now, I know many of you probably have never heard of it, so fair enough. It is relatively young. Um, Moshe Feldenkrais started it in the 30s in Tel Aviv, and I came across it in my 30s, and it was because of pain. How many times do we try something new because nothing else has worked?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what happened to me. But go back up a little bit from that. My life has all been about process improvements. I'm all about efficiency, effectiveness. Let's have something functional going on. And I started as a programmer. So I was making the computer programs work faster, more accurately, etc. That was part of my, training and what I did first. And then in the company I was in, I got promoted into a process improvement. I was a Six Sigma quality master black belt, big mouthful,
Wow.
basically saying that let's take the business process. It might have too many steps, may have outgrown the need for some approvals or some extra double checking if it's automated, and look at that business process and make it more efficient. And that could
Mm-hmm.
involve everybody, who's involved in any process. So
Mm-hmm.
getting an application through or doing a withdrawal or deposits. I was in financial services. So
Okay.
we looked at business processes and said, okay, let's make it faster, better, more accurate, you know, less time consuming, more automated where it was appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was improving from programming processes to business processes. And then I wasn't really paying attention to my body.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really paid, from the neck down. I was paid from the head up to solve problems. And I love solving problems. I love looking at patterns and finding where's the bug and let's smooth it out and make it run faster. But my body ended up having some significant pains. They were right in my chest that woke me up in the middle of the night. That's scary,
Mm.
especially
Yeah,
when my
would be.
dad died young of a heart attack. It's like, ooh, right? I
Yeah.
literally got off the freeway going, I don't know what's happening.
Mm.
Now, the good news is my heart is perfectly fine. What wasn't okay, and I didn't know it for quite a while. I followed, a healing path. One person sent me here, then another person sent me here, and I tried all these referrals, and practitioners said, "Oh, you should try da 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 da," and all the methodologies were good. I really believe what's out there has helped somebody and been successful, or else other people wouldn't spend the time, money, and energy to be certified and to be running their businesses doing it. So these are all good things. For
Mm-hmm.
me, unfortunately, they gave me some relief, but it was temporary. So the chest pains came back even after my big corporate job moved to Richmond, Virginia, and I stayed in Seattle, Washington. And I was out of that stress. It was a high stress job. I had two bosses. It was pretty, too many hours, not enough balance. So even, they said, oh, yeah, you reduce the stress, that'll stop. Like, no, it didn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my practitioners said, "Oh, you need to work with this fellow, Arnie. He's up in Canada." And I said, "Oh, I happen to be going there next week. Isn't that just perfect timing?" I was
Mm-hmm.
laid off from my corporate job because they moved the headquarters and I stayed in Seattle. So I had time. I had a little, money in the bank from that, severance. So I had some time to go visit friends in Canada. And it just so happened I was in the same city as Arnie. And I saw him a couple times and he has many different certifications and he helped. And he's like, "Yeah, I think I can help you with your pain." I said, "Yeah, this feels different than anybody else I've worked with." And he goes, "Yeah, but if you want it to not come back again," and I'm like, "Okay, all ears. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want this again. It is scary. It is painful. It interrupts my sleep, gets me off the freeway. Come on." He said, "Well, you need to learn to move differently." And I thought, oh, what does that mean? It really kind of bounced off my brain. I had no idea what that meant. You need to learn to move differently. I hadn't put the words together that way before. And then he handed me, and he's in Canada. So I'm like, I can't come and see you to get rid of this pain. He goes, "Go see my trainer." And he handed me the card of Jeff Haller, who's one of the most world renowned Feldenkrais trainers who studied with Moshe Feldenkrais way back when. And he said, "Go see my trainer." And he gave me a little lecture on the Feldenkrais method about learning to move differently
Mm-hmm.
and through some awareness of what's going on. And so I went and saw Jeff for some private sessions. That's one way that the Feldenkrais method works. We do hands on sessions with people. And nowadays, since COVID, we've had really a lot of successes with people online using their hands on themselves, which is really sweet actually, because they get even closer to themselves. So we teach
Mm-hmm.
one on one on Zoom as well. But in any case, I went for hands on sessions and we found out after a few sessions, he asked me, "Did you ever march in the military?" And I'm like, "No, but I did drum and bugle corps for some years. I marched for about 8 years, and it was very militaristic, and you were really marching stiff, and you didn't let anything move, and I didn't let anything move up here where this pain was.
Okay.
And then I was waitressing, and of course you don't want to drop plates, so everything really got locked in up here,
Hmm.
and I had some, it turns out my collarbones were rubbing on my sternum and causing the pain. So it wasn't just the stiffness, it was also my habit and my self-image. What I think between my ears is that I have too broad of shoulders for a woman and too short of a neck. And so I did some, and I always carried a little extra weight. So I did a little this and a little that, and that brought the health. I'm exaggerating, but I'm not the only one, right? Because something up here
Sure.
is never quite right. It's too big, too small, too late, too early, whatever. This is a place that's not easy for a lot of women.
Yes.
So I had that habit for a long time. So it wasn't just a 1 day thing or a 1 year thing or a little bit. It was a lifetime of kind of protecting and doing this thing that caused this. And he was the one who figured it out. And once we figured out that was where the pain was caused, and then I could get more comfortable with having my shoulders come back into their home spot. For my body, this is me, take it or leave it. I have broad shoulders. I got to grow into this is kind of okay, and it's much more comfortable. Haven't had the pain since. So then he asked me, well, what are you going to do since I was laid off from corporate America? And he goes, what are you going to do next? And I said, well, I don't know. But I liked coaching my staff to get promoted. I liked running groups to improve processes, because that's what we did, make things better, work together. And he said, well, why don't you do this? And my immediate response was very visceral. It went right into my sternum. What? Like, I can't do that. I don't know bodies. I don't know bones and muscles. I work with computers through my fingers. I can,
Right.
do lots of things, but I'm not so much here. And he said, do you have a nervous system? Okay, I knew that much. Yes, I have a nervous system. And then he says, oh, that's all you need. So I didn't have an argument. He said, oh, the next training starts in Maui. And I'm like, ugh. And he said, oh, that space doesn't usually go with people going to Maui for 2
Right.
months a year for 4 years.
Right.
He said, look at my skin. I am not a beach girl. I am a rain in Seattle girl. Suits my skin fine. But he said, oh, it's in the springtime. It rains a lot. It'll be fine. And I said, well, let's see. But I said, I'll see. I was going to go off and do a backpacking trip in Europe because I finally recovered from corporate America, figured out relief, and said, I'm out of here. So I went backpacking, and I thought, no, I've got to go far away from this. This is too out there from my financial services job in technology and in process improvement, which I could work anywhere in the world with those skills, to this thing that I didn't ever, I just learned about that most people didn't know about.
Right.
So anyway, I went off to Europe, had a great old time. But this time, I've done this, every couple of years, I do a backpacking trip, and you get blisters when you hike a lot, see a lot of cities and on cobblestones. This time, I didn't have blisters, and I carried a pack. I pack with Rick Steves tools, and I'm like, okay, I'm walking on, and okay, sleeping on pretty simple beds. I'm like, I'm not having back pain. And I, kept loading up my backpack with gifts, as I went through the trip. And I'm like, my back's okay. And all I could point to was those, lessons that I did with Jeff before I went on this trip. I'm like, it really changed me. Because otherwise I would have just expected, and no, it's not horrible, but I was used to getting blisters and having back pain and, struggling with the pack as it got heavier. No problem. I'm like, okay, this really did something. So when I came back, I found out more about the training, started the training, and I told Jerry Karzin, who was Feldenkrais's personal assistant for 9 years. I got to learn was really some of the best of the best. I told him, I'm not sure if I can do this for 4 years. I, just got laid off. I don't know how you can swing, tuition and traveling to Maui and all this stuff. And he goes, well, just try it a year and see how it goes. And I made it all 4 years, got certified, and then did continuing that every year. And I've been happy ever since. And now my work actually helps me take care of my body, head to toe, not just here. And so, and I get to apply all the skills I was using But instead of to the business and bottom line, it's our physical head to toes, how we move, how we process our, how we go through our functions of the day. So
Nice.
that's my
Yeah,
story.
very, very cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're
Very,
welcome.
very interesting. I know you came prepared to kind of lead us in a little exercise so that we could
Yeah,
actually experience what you've just been talking about. Would now be a good time?
it would be because, it's
Okay.
an experiential learning method. So I could talk till I'm blue in the face, but if you experience it, you're going to have a better sense of, well, what does it mean to do a Feldenkrais awareness through movement lesson? So the hands-on is called functional integration, integrating a particular function like walking, sitting, dancing, hiking, gardening, whatever is an ing that you do in your life activities. And then the classroom is also functionally based, but it's awareness through movement is what the name of this part of the method is. So we're inviting us to become more aware of how we're moving. Because until I knew what I was doing, I couldn't change it. So the
Right.
awareness that came through these private sessions, then I could do something differently and have some freedom. So we're going to increase awareness, and all you need to do is have a seat, and ideally something that's not wheeled. So I'm going to shift back to my other chair instead of my desk chair,
And I'll
and you'll be able
shift
to
here.
see me. But I usually don't model when I'm teaching. I just like to do it with new people and with seated lessons because sometimes it helps to go, what the heck is she doing? What does she mean? So we'll make it
Yeah.
easy. So you have a seat and you take a breath. And I'll teach you one of the 5 lessons that's included in my ABCs of Everyday Ease. We're going to work with the B lesson, and B is for buttocks. Something we don't always say out loud, but I got used to it because it's just part of our body, right?
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to get a sip of water before I start teaching, and I suggest that you come to the front of your chair, and I'll show you from the side. So anytime you're resting, you can sit back. It's perfectly fine. There's no wrong way to sit. But while we're moving, I want you to come forward to the front edge of the chair, comfortably forward, not too far. Have your feet about hip width apart, flat on the ground, about 90 degrees at your hips and your knees, but comfortable, right? So you modify for you. Some people like a wider stance in their legs, some people a little more narrow, but have some space between your knees and your feet, okay? So that's the position for our lesson today. And as you're arriving, sitting in the chair, feet flat, breathing, set your attention down to that which is holding you up. The floor underneath your feet, the chair under your seat. And notice how much of your weight is on your sit bones or the bottom of your pelvis versus on your feet. Is it distributed 50-50, or is there more weight in either your 2 feet or your 2 sit bones? So just notice, you can answer to yourself. You don't need to say anything out loud. Just sense, where's my weight right now? We're going to have some reference moves so that we can compare afterwards to see if something changed. Feldenkrais was a scientist, and so these are really very much experiments in movement. And so, as you're sitting forward in the front of your chair, create your own personal theory about which of your 2 feet would be the simplest to lift a little bit off the floor. We're talking an inch or two, it doesn't have to be a big movement. And some part of you knows. So go ahead and just lift one foot and put it down. And do it a few times so you can sense, how does that foot lift? But also notice what is moving in the rest of you. How do you do this? Notice the ease, the weight of lifting and lowering this one foot a few times, and then leave it. Leave it on the ground, and then we're going to test your theory. Bring your attention to the other foot, lift it, and put it down. And just notice, sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. Doesn't matter, we're still learning. Is this foot somehow easier or lighter to lift? So just sense for yourself, hi, how was it today? Was it right? Is this one sort of awkward or heavier somehow? And then leave it and rest a moment. It's not unusual. There's nothing wrong. You're not bad, broken, or wrong. We're just observing how we're organized for movement. And right now, one leg might be more organized and easier than the other for who knows what reason. We're going to see about making them both easier. So bring your attention to your sit bones, those bony parts at the bottom of your pelvis. And what we're going to do is get some connection to them. You can take your hands palm up or palm down, and you can put them underneath your sit bones if that's okay. And if it's not okay, what I'd suggest you do is just put them to the sides of your chair, pointing towards your sit bones so that your arms are in a particular place. Either way, it'll be a learning opportunity. So you can be comfortable, you'll learn more. So for me, I'm okay with having my fingers underneath my sit bones for a little bit. As soon as they're not okay, take them away, okay? So here you are. Can't miss those sit bones. Let's see about moving them a little bit backwards. So rock your pelvis a little bit backwards so the weight goes a little bit behind your fingers. And then return to where you began. Just allow the pelvis to rock backwards. That's going to round your low back a little bit. And then bring them back to the middle and breathe. You don't need to go fast. You don't need to go far to make a big difference. So a few movements of rocking just one direction, backwards, and then on top of those sit bones. And then go ahead, take your hands out and rest. Again, if there's hands are not happy, you can try the other way, palm up or palm down, or just have them close to you. I'm going to turn my chair so you can see. They could just be close to your sit bones on the side of your chair. It's really all it needs to be, okay? What I love about this work is you can't do it wrong, but you could do it more comfortably, and that's what we're after. So keep modifying for your own comfort. If you're comfortable, you can put your hands underneath your sit bones once again. And this time we're going to rock the pelvis forward. So you can take your belly forward a bit and your pelvis forward, and the weight goes in front of those hands, and then return. And just do that a few times at your own pace. You can do these with your eyes open or your eyes closed. Some people find they can sense more about their weight and what they're doing and how they're doing it if their eyes are closed. So you can try that if you like, not required. Good. Then take your hands away and rest a moment. This is a short introductory lesson, which is what all the ABCs are. It's a little taste that can be good done as a coffee break and might help you to be more comfortable through your day. All right, so we're going to bring these two movements together. I have a little pool noodle here just to help you see and sense what's happening in your spine. As you rock your pelvis backwards, your spine starts to flex a little bit. And then as you rock your pelvis forward, you go a little bit into extension. We're not doing a big movement here, so just allow yourself to sense what's happening. When you rock your pelvis backwards, maybe your chin wants to come down. You can let that happen. When you rock your pelvis forward, your chin might lift a little bit away from your chest. That's okay. That's just following the flow from head to tail. The spine's all connected. Breathing in, maybe it helps to breathe in when you come forward. Breathing out, maybe it's easier when you're rocking backwards, but there's no wrong way to breathe. So just keep breathing and moving a little bit forward, a little bit backwards at your own pace, okay? All right, then leave that. I'll put this away. I have one thing to click on my computer. All right. And when you're resting, you can rest however you like. Like I said, if you want to rest sitting all the way back, that might be a nice place to rest. You can do that. When you're ready, come forward once again. Let's try one more time. Hands underneath the sit bones, if you like, or close to them on the outside of on the chair. And let's go ahead and rock a little bit backwards, a little bit forwards. Sensing that weight shift in those sit bones, forward and backwards, and then begin to make a smaller exploration. So go less backwards and then less forwards, and even smaller the next time. Smaller and smaller movements backwards and forwards, until it feels like you're kind of not forward and not backwards. Leave yourself there when you get there and take away your hands. And just notice what sitting is like. Do you have more contact with your seat on the chair? That happens sometimes. Notice what you notice is different. Maybe there's a different weight distribution between your feet on the floor and the weight in your sit bones on the chair. Your feet may have figured out how to do a little bit more of the work. Maybe. And they may have already been doing everything they needed to do. But notice if it feels different to you. Maybe this would be easier to sit through a podcast sitting on your sit bones. And then let's find out if it changed something in our leg lift. So go ahead and remember which one was the easiest. Pick up that foot, put it down. And do it a few times and find out, is it any easier to lift and lower that foot? Notice what it's true for you. And once you've done it a few times on this side, then shift. Let's lift the other one. That one that was heavier or somehow more awkward to lift, is it any easier now? It may or may not have changed, but we're noticing because that's when the brain learns, is when it can perceive a difference. So we created an experience that may be different. And it might take longer for some people to have that shift and freedom in their hips. So not to worry, but this is an introduction. And just notice how it is they're sitting now. In general, do you have more contact with the floor and the chair than when you did in the beginning? If so, one possibility is that your muscles were actually fighting gravity and holding you up away from the floor and away from the chair in some places. And now that they let go of unnecessary tonus, they might have more contact. You might be more at ease and not have so much muscular tonus that's unnecessary for sitting. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm sitting this way all the time. I practice. So when I do a little bit like this, if I'm going to sit for a long time at my computer, I'll interrupt my sitting by doing something similar to this. There's a lot of lessons that you can play with. Feldenkrais originally recorded over 1,000 awareness through movement lessons. And then every time he taught a workshop and a training, he created more. So, and every time I teach, it's a little different. And so the variations in teaching, it just grows and grows and grows. So there's really no limit on how to, on lessons, because different students inspire me to teach different ways to meet their needs. So B is for buttocks. Now, if you're in a place you want to take a little walk around, coming out of the chair might feel good because we just really got connected to those sit bones. And the chair may have been a hard dining room chair, so you might want to walk around a little bit. You're certainly welcome to do that if you're in a safe place. Obviously, this is not to be done while you're driving your car. But come and be comfortable. And I'm just curious if, Carla, if you have any questions. It's the first time you've ever done an awareness through movement lesson.
It is. I was surprised. I figured I'm very right-handed in my body, and so I expected my right foot would be much easier to lift just because I'm more coordinated, and it wasn't. It was the left side. But yet when I moved, it was the left side that felt more pushing against something. So when I was, so I don't know.
It's okay. You don't have to know. And right after a lesson, sometimes we call this a little Feldy buzz. You're kind of like, I'm still integrating. We did something here. All right. We worked with the biggest muscles connected to the biggest bone, the pelvis.
Okay.
And so sometimes the integration takes a little time. And again, first experiences, you observe, though, something that surprised you. The left was easier than the right. That's awareness. And it might be similar on a different day. It might be completely different. So we just are always in that moment going, what's happening and what works right now? And why not go with what's easy if there's a choice? And of course, we want them both to be easy. Did you notice anything afterwards that was different?
There was more of an equal weight between my sit bones and my feet, whereas before most of the weight was on my sit bones.
Yeah, great observation. Yeah, so what if while we're sitting, our feet could actually do a little bit more of the work?
Hmm.
And then there'd be a little less work, perhaps, in muscles of the back. And if I can only teach people one thing, I want them to find their sit bones. Because we all sit a lot. That's just a fact. Not everybody. I get it. Some people have more standing jobs, etc. But if you're not sitting on your sit bones, you might actually be sitting more on your back. And your back is holding you up. Those muscles are working harder than they have to. You might be really strong and you get through with it, but as we age, unfortunately, sometimes it shows up later in life like, ooh, that's not okay. So we want to
Yeah.
find the bones for the skeletal support that's built in, use it to the best of our ability. And everybody's got a different skeleton, so that means we're all going to have a little differences. But then the muscles are ready to go when you need them. They're not working hard just to sit quietly on a podcast.
Right. Hey, someone from the chat was saying in the beginning, her left foot seemed lighter, and after the exercise, the right foot was lighter.
Interesting. So was the left foot? Well, yeah. So the curious is if it was the left stayed about the same and the right really changed, so it's more obvious that it got lighter, and it can change. And there's no right and there's no wrong, but somehow something organized in the system, this neuromuscular skeletal system, to move in a different way. Something shifted. So cool. Thanks for letting us know. I don't know how to see those. Oh, I just saw how to get those comments.
Yeah, take the time to find it. What struck me though, as we were talking, um, I, I mean, a lot of people have said I'm much more aware of feeling how my body feels. Like I say, I like chiropractic,
Mhm.
and I'll explain, what's going on, what I think it is, what vertebrae I think it's at, or how it feels, or if it's muscle or instead of
Yeah.
vertebrae or something, and they'll be surprised. It's like no one says that. It's just like I hurt.
Yeah, you're
And
tuned in. You got more specificity, huh?
yes, and
Yeah.
so, but what struck me when we were talking just now was that, um, and you referred to at your website that you use you, or on the description too that I read about your work, that you rely on intuition as well as your knowledge in working. And I daily use intuition as often as I remember to do so, for as many things as I remember to do so, and listening for guidance and stuff. And even though I've been aware of different things in my body for years, it's like I hadn't really compared the two. It's the same thing. You're listening. You're listening,
Yeah,
right? Instead of leading, you're
absolutely.
listening.
Absolutely. So great. So you get something new, which is hopefully everybody can have some novelty. Novelty is when the brain also alerts and says, hey, I'm going to build some new neural pathways because we're doing something new. So the beauty of a lesson, any Feldenkrais lesson, there should be, that's the intention, is to bring in a new experience. So that also is always engaging the brain in a way, not just the body. So that's how one of the ways it's different than some modalities. It's intentionally engaging the brain for tapping into the neuroplasticity that is there. And actually, Feldenkrais is now known as the first neuroplastician.
Oh, really? Hmm.
Uh-huh. Because he knew how to apply this before there was even, this discussion. Um, I'm trying to remember the author's name that called that. Dr. Norman Deutsch, in his New York best-selling books, references Feldenkrais and calls him the first neuroplastician, that he really knew what he was doing, ahead of his time. He wasn't there to see it, but that's that's okay. We're happy that he, did this because it's helped a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so then I just spoke about intuition. How do you use intuition in your work then?
Good question. I don't know how I could not use it. I'm listening, and Feldenkrais, a lot of his lessons, of course, were taught in Hebrew, and the translation of listening to your
Oh,
body. I'm like, oh, before this work, I didn't ever think about listening to how my back moved or listening to my weight. It's a different
mhm.
uh, instruction, but it really is that. So listening to my intuition. So when I start with a group class or a one-on-one, I ask them, what's in the room today, and what would you like to embody before the end of the hour? And so I let people, this is part of an NLP process as well, say, what is it you want? And oftentimes they say what they don't want, because it's more available. I don't want this pain in my neck. I don't want this pain
Oh,
in my hip.
right,
I don't want this, right?
right.
Fine. Okay, then what would it feel like without that pain?
Hmm.
What's a quality you could embody? And they might come up with freedom or spaciousness or power or ease or fluidity. The words that come from my students are just beautiful. And I use that idea, this quality we want to embody, sort of this overarching intention that no matter what I teach, I'm going for the experience of perhaps spaciousness. And I had a woman privately recently who was a gardener who had pain. She was doing a lot of gardening. Her hand hurt, her shoulder hurt, her hip hurt. And I'm like, okay, so what do you want? Because we know what you don't want. Really good to know what you don't want, because back of the hand, front of the hand, it tells you, I don't want pain. What do I want? And she came up with, I want to feel spacious in my body. I feel compressed right now. She's
Hmm.
tightening around pain, which is really all that muscles can do. They can shorten and they can lengthen. That's it. So I usually am helping people let go of unnecessary tension.
Hmm.
And for her, we did this hands on session, did some work. And afterwards, she's walking around and she's like, I said, well, how does it feel? Well, this is different, that's different. Oh, I feel more spacious. It'd been an hour. So, she came back to, oh, that's what I'm feeling. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we were looking for, some space between ribs, between vertebrae, between, joints, any place we could imagine. And I could invite some spaciousness so that she might not have that feeling. Um, that's what she experienced coming out
And
of the hour.
yeah, well, that goes back to your story, right, of your collarbone rubbing on your sternum. Because when you were saying that, I thought, well, how can that happen? And I'm not great. I'm not great at anatomy and
Right,
physiology,
right,
right?
right.
But it's because you were very contracted.
I was contracted for decades, right? I thought my shoulders looked like football pads when I was in junior high, long, long time ago. And I thought women were supposed to have a longer neck and of course not so much weight. So I thought I was looking more attractive. It wasn't working, but I didn't that's what I did for a long, 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 long time.
Hmm.
And so to come out and not have the skeletal posture, to have that spaciousness there, really changed a lot of things, but it also made me a little more vulnerable, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I
Uh,
had to grow into that this is okay
yeah.
and keep breathing. And of course, I can still do my, protective posture whenever I want to. It's my choice. But I didn't have this option before. And now I have a bigger repertoire of options. And that's what we really want, is just to expand to the natural options available to the individual.
Well, and that contraction, I had two thoughts about that. It happens as we're leaning into our work, right, on the computer. I spend a lot of time, or even leaning into my work in sessions with
Yeah,
clients, right?
yeah.
But what I notice also is my dad was one, but I notice it more in both men and women, although I think men maybe show it earlier, but they become stooped, right, as they get older. And so I've been, because I saw it so distinctly on my father in the years before he died, it was like I'm trying to um, do the exercise to strengthen and rotate my
Absolutely.
shoulders out
Right. Right.
and spread it out, and have that spaciousness. Try to keep those muscles working right
Sure.
instead of falling forward.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah, and it takes some practice, and that's what you're doing. You've got an idea of what you want, and you're going for it in a way that you found so far. And that's something that a lot of modalities can help with. I'm not just saying Feldenkrais is the only one, but it is the one that I found that it's helped me and the people I work with because it helps the skeleton to find home instead of. So if someone tells you sit up straight, what do? We might, right? I
yes,
can't
yes,
sustain this. This is
right,
not where I'm happy right now.
yeah,
I'm gonna I'm gonna lose it after some minutes, right?
right,
But if my
absolutely.
bones are in the right place, then it's going to be easier to sustain. So I think about this as sustainable postures and actures. Feldenkrais called it acture because he didn't like the word post from a posture standpoint because it was still
Okay,
and not moving. And he felt like
okay, uh-huh,
we have the right posture for the action at hand.
right, okay,
It's not going to be just one size fits all. It's going to be I got to move through different actions. I'm going to go reach over here to get water. I'm not going to, do it the same way as if it's over here. It's going to be a different thing. And if I'm the Queen's Guard, maybe I do want to have a stiff post-like posture. But unless I'm the Queen's Guard and paid for that, I want to move, right? I'm going to have everything available, and life's going to have you gardening and bending and picking up your groceries and putting things in and out of the fridge, and it's going to call for all these other postures.
right. Well, and I was wondering, well, if some of those postures, um, you know, what if have you noticed, or in the Feldenkrais work or whatever, have you seen, I mean, because yours was long standing, right? Your pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Could could you draw draw a line from when you look back and think, oh, that's when it started? I'm wondering if there's research or whatever that shows that traumatic events that maybe happen to us start, in our reaction of sadness or grief or anger, um, if that is an initial start to the posture habits that aren't helpful.
Yeah, I don't know about the research on that, but I do have experience for 25 years to say yes, there's things that have happened to people that caused a habit, and um, it's some of them could be very short lived. Oh, I just sprained my ankle and I'm walking around with a boot for 6 weeks.
Hmm.
Oh, when you took the boot off, did anybody help you to go back to your old walk, or do you still walk as if you have a boot on?
Right.
Right? Because the
Yes.
brain needs to know I can put as much weight on that healed foot now as I used to, but it takes some experience to feel safe again and return without those compensations that were required while you had the boot on.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it could be very short lived, it could be long term, that, but yeah, something happened and something changed, right? Because we're moving along through our young years, most of us pretty comfortably,
Hmm.
right? And then something happened and it didn't go away really easily. And then, yeah, there's something. Um, and we don't always have to know why. We just really want to say, where's the relief? How
Right.
do we
Yeah.
get through and get some relief and some hope? I worked with somebody recently who had a stroke and they lost the use of, an arm and a leg. And they were previously very active bike rider. Like they biked, Seattle to Portland. They biked long bike rides regularly, and they couldn't be on a bike, and they wanted to be. And it
Hmm.
was a new thing. It wasn't, their old habit was very active, very fit, very able. And his wife happened to work with me privately and in classes, and so she's like, "Oh, you have to go see LeeAnn." And thankfully, his neurologist actually prescribed Feldenkrais twice a week for
Oh,
him.
good. Yeah. Yeah.
And so we worked together for a couple of months, and he was back on the bike after that. Now
Wow.
we got it early, and he had a mild stroke. Again, every body
Mhm.
is different, cannot predict what helps, each person. But
Mhm.
I'm there for let's figure out what's going to work best and give short lessons for them to practice at home, like this B is for buttocks thing to say, okay, if my back's always bugging me and I'm living on a computer and I'm like this, I need to find a way to find my sit bones and employ them a little bit more of the day. Not all day long, because, we're all going to have our slumps. We're going to be tired. But the more you do the practice, the more you go, oh gosh, I'm here. Okay. Then you can correct more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all we need to do is have the awareness of, oh, I'm in a place that doesn't feel good for long. And how long? Okay, I got to move. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it it can be a short-lived recent thing that happens that we need to work through. It could be something that started, really young in childhood or later. I worked with a dancer who she was teaching dance at a school, and she was having this repeat problem. And she was really frustrated because she loved dancing and she just couldn't seem to do some of her things without pain. So we worked through and figured out what it was and how to help her with that. But then she actually came to the point of saying, you know what, as I'm aging, she was turning 40 or so, she said, this is not for me for my long time. So part of what she worked with me through private sessions was she was going to shift careers.
Huh.
And she found a gradual process to go back to school and study something else so that she could still dance, not the same rigor as it was to be a dance teacher, but she could
Mm-hmm.
dance for herself, still have that be part of her life and not hurt herself. So
Right.
it's, everybody's different.
Right. So what if you have something physiologically about your body that can't change?
Good
Like
question. Yep.
maybe, well, the thing what I thought, I have a trigger finger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it just catches a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I, or what if you broke a bone but it was reset wrong and so
Right.
there was naturally a glitch in
Yeah.
that? How does that work with you?
It's a great question. And, we work with what we got. So what we're focusing on is how to do what you want to do as best that you can do it with your system, whatever you've got going on. Um, and that's going to be different, right? Not everybody's going to be able to change because, yeah, lots of conditions are, there's something you figure out. How do you live with it the most comfortably? How do you do more of what you want with the least pain given what you've got? So we're still refining the quality of movement, and we're doing it through learning, and we're co-discovering what works. I get feedback from people, oh, this worked, this didn't work, as we're going through a session or a class. And we find a path. I call it my business next step consulting. It's like one step at a time is all we really can learn. Right? And we didn't get the ABCs overnight, right? We learned them a whole bunch of different ways, but over time, we can use those letters in all sorts of ways now, but it took some time, and it depends on what's going on as to, is it something that is a relatively short series of things to learn to move differently, or is it something that you're going to do maintenance because this is what you're living with? And I've got
Mhm.
people with MS that they, come to me regularly for maintenance so that they can keep doing what they do with the best balance with what they've got.
Right. Yeah, that sounds good. So does your work with the NLP then, um you're training the body in some sessions and then other times you're training the mind to help your body?
Well,
Or
so I have those as two separate sessions, but I also in my Feldenkrais class and private sessions use some NLP languaging to find out what is it that they really want, so that I know what success looks like to them. Like
mhm,
I said, that woman with pain from gardening, she wanted spaciousness. Now someone else might want fluidity or lightness, and it might be a different lesson. So my discussion is using NLP techniques to find out what's underneath, what's really going on, what would success be like for them, what do they really want if they don't have the language for it.
mhm.
But I do NLP sessions that are different, that are straight NLP, not
Okay.
Feldenkrais, and I do straight Feldenkrais sessions, but the discussion part is usually still some NLP. So that thinking, moving, sensing, feeling is still all combined.
Mhm.
So I'll pull from everything I've got to bring
Sure.
to the table to help people. And some people prefer an NLP session and not
Mhm.
hands on. So it
Right.
depends on what the person's wanting. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Um I was wondering, you also list metaphysical practices. So beside intuition, I guess, which would be in some way the metaphysical, right? But I took it that you meant something else by metaphysical. Like, do you use crystals, or do you tap into, the energy grid? Are you, what do you think of as
Great
metaphysical?
question. Well, I was certified as a religious science practitioner, which is using prayer. And I don't do prayer sessions combined with my Feldenkrais sessions, and I'm no longer certified there. So I don't do those anymore. However, it does feel like this is my ministry in the world. And when I'm
Sure.
asking people what they really want to embody, those are those high vibration words that I'm going for: ease,
Okay.
freedom, good,
Yeah.
power, joy. And so I'm looking to get to that place that we're moving in the direction of something that's um, has that vibration or that power in those words. So I'm looking to have them set intentions, but um, I don't want anybody to have a particular belief or spiritual practice to be able to work with me. So
Hmm.
I keep that
Sure.
separate.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I certainly, um, yeah, build it in through the quality that they're looking to embody.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The high vibration words, for sure. It makes a big difference what that goal is. And I suppose for well, I was just thinking, for me, I could easily see saying a word to start with, right? But then um, down the road after a few sessions, it's like, well, this word is more of what I'm describing, right? Or I realized what was inside what I really wanted, instead of just the physical more that I started with or something.
Yeah, it can shift every session I start because everybody comes in unique. I may have an idea of, oh, we did this last time. I think we should do this next time. And then they show up and that's not appropriate at all. I always have to be in the moment going, okay, what's going on today?
Right.
And
Right.
we go from today, what's a quality you want to embody, or what would you like to feel like walking out of here? And let's, if you have a wish, what would it be? And go towards that. What we know about learning, from a developmental standpoint, is that the children are learning because they have an idea that's something they want, right? They're
Mhm.
reaching because there's something sparkly, or
Yeah.
someone's voice is over there, or there's a toy. They have a reason to move, not just to move for movement's sake. It's not exercise that way. It's,
Hmm.
embodying some more possibilities.
Yeah. Neat. I'm sorry, I got a pesky little fly around here.
Oh dear.
The okay, you kind of spoke about that, the in body, mind, and spirit. Um, yeah. Um, w- I guess I know you have some courses or some, your lessons that you talked
Mhm.
about. Could you talk more about
Sure.
those things that you offer, so it gives people an idea, more of ideas of how that, um, what they might benefit from, or
Sure.
to think of.
Well, I do have drop-in classes Tuesday mornings at 8 a.m. on Pacific time, so it's 11 a.m. for the East Coasters that I teach, and early birds like me on the West Coast. So Tuesday mornings class is usually done seated for people who may or may not be comfortable getting to and from the floor, but they like doing lessons in a seated position. And then I teach Wednesdays at 5:30 Pacific time, which is 8:30 on the East Coast. These are both on Zoom, so anybody could drop in and check it out. And again, each lesson starts at the beginning of the hour and ends at the end of the hour, and we set intention with whoever's in the room, and I design something to meet people's needs that are there. Um, and then I do private sessions on Zoom as well as in person in my North Seattle office. So if some listeners are in the West Coast area, I'd love to see them in person. But Zoom sessions are available. I do a first 15-minute free introduction to help people understand who I am, what I do, and they can ask me any question and I can find out, what they're looking for and see if we're a good match.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do a first session is half off to also determine,
Mm-hmm.
hey, is this actually helping you? And I'm happy to pass on other referrals if I'm not the one to support people on their path. Um, and then we find out if they want to do more. So classes, private sessions, and then my audio recordings A through F. So that's something you can buy on the website, and you've got a link to it to have a discount. So it'd be $5 off of the 6 classes, and they are A is for ankles, B is for buttocks, C is for clavicles, my favorite. Um, D is for the diaphragm, E is for eyes, and F is for foot. And even though the lessons are labeled with a particular body part, we're always working with the whole body. Like we did with the buttocks, we felt from the feet up. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
just how are your sit bones today. Um, so the lessons help more than one particular concern, and the recordings come with the transcripts of the lessons if people like to read them versus listen. And it has like a introduction about how to do the lessons and which ones work with which sorts of aches or pains.
Hmm.
So all that's
Okay.
packaged together. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
Mhm.
very good. Well, is there any last thought or idea that you would like to leave people with before we close?
Well, one thing I wanted to note was about how our bodies are instruments. And if you think of an instrument, you take it out, you tune it every time, right? The string instruments, especially if you're thinking violin, guitar, whatever. Pianos are tuned regularly. It's like, okay, we need to tune up to keep playing through our world and our life the best that we can. And so I wanted to just bring in the fact that, this is a way to maintain and support the best use of our whole self. Um, and I just want to help people have a good life. So if you get questions, just check in and schedule a time. We can talk for free, and I can learn more about if this is a good fit for you.
All right, sounds good. LeeAnn, thank you so much for coming and sharing about this. I know I've enjoyed our conversation a lot and learned a lot too. So I that's my carrot, I think. You said that the sparkly thing that kids, it's like
Yeah,
learning is for me if it's something I'm
sure.
interested in that
Yeah.
can benefit me or so. So thank you very much. And
You're welcome. My pleasure to talk with you.
oh, you're welcome. And thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And I know so does LeeAnn. And tomorrow I'll have my regular podcast at 10 a.m. on Tuesday at Central Time. And then Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central Time, I do the free biofield tuning. Um, um, and the tuning is according to the moon energies that we're experiencing during each week. So it helps to integrate us um, to receive those energies and work with them because that's what they're there for. The universe is always there for us, working in our favor. And that's what I'm trying to do with working with the moon energies, is to convey that my love for how the universe is always working in our favor and how we can work with it instead of against it. And that's what LeeAnn does, right? You train your body to work with your body instead of against each other in different
Mm-hmm.
ways. And so I'll end there. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.